Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, June 9th, 2019, and today we're going to be looking at the true toss-up states in the year 2020. So we all know there's a presidential election coming up, and obviously it's going to be the center point of the mainstream media. But they are definitely going to overhype a number of states and call them swing states when in reality they may not be so close. States include states like Texas or possibly even Utah like we saw in 2016, which ended up being discussed a lot but didn't actually narrow down when it came down to it being a very close race. Now, that was 2016. I mentioned Texas. Texas definitely can narrow up in 2020. But again, there are a number of states here that are typically considered toss-up states that may not actually be toss-ups in 2020. And there may be a few new states that we didn't see in 2016 that are going to be considered close, or it may be the same ones you're expecting. Regardless, today we're just going to be going through all of the toss-up states, and there actually aren't that many, that I believe are going to be the true toss-up states for 2020. So let's jump right into this by characterizing all of the safe Democratic states. We know a number of states in the Northeast. Same thing every single video. Same thing goes for the Republican Party, but we'll go ahead and get to that in a moment. I think I just accidentally characterized Maryland as likely, but there we go. New Mexico would be safe. In this scenario, it would still be considered safe. For the GOP, they have a number of states up across the red wall here. The thing is, I'm going to put all of the toss-up states that are considered toss-ups in almost every single election prediction as toss-ups right now, and then we'll actually go into the ones that are truly toss-ups. So that leaves a number of states. I think that actually might be it. 125 electoral votes for Donald Trump and 187 for the Democratic Party. So if you're looking at the map right now, there are more toss-up electoral votes than Democratic or Republican electoral votes, and that really says something about these toss-up states. However, if we're looking at them very closely, a number of these states aren't actually toss-up states. They're just not safe. And, that's how I like to start off my videos, because that way you guys can see the safe, likely, lean, then tilt. But when it comes down to the 2020 presidential election coverage, the mainstream media is probably going to cover every single one of these states, possibly in detail, when in reality, not all of them need to be covered. If we see states like Maine and states like Texas up there in the toss-up section, we definitely think that they could be within 1% to 2%, where in reality, they're probably going to be around 5-6% and just closer than they were in 2016 or closer than they were in 2012 or 2008, which does say something about the state particularly, but a number of these states aren't toss-ups. If you look back at the 2016 presidential election, a number of those predictions, the ones that did not fill in the map completely, they had a number of toss-up electoral votes. I believe Fox News didn't even have a presidential election winner from 2016, which in hindsight was considerably smart, but compared to every other news network, didn't really make sense. But if we're looking at the numbers, they had a number of toss-up electoral votes. And the media really likes to do this because it's a way for them to play safe. If Texas goes to the GOP or the Democratic Party, putting it in the toss-up column doesn't say that they declared a winner, just that it would be close. And close is really up to whatever it's defined as. It could be 5 to 6% there in comparison, in quotations, in comparison to a previous election, or it could just be close, within less than 1% like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in 2016. So again, it's really, really subjective. But if we're just looking at a number of these toss-up, quote-unquote toss-up states, they may not actually be real toss-up states. So let's go ahead and characterize some of these non-toss-up states and put them in the respective parties column. So the first one I would start off with is Virginia. I know they're not going to call Virginia early in the evening because all the Republican counties come in with their results first, but that one's probably going to end up at the end of the day as a likely state for the Democratic Party. That's pretty much expected. It's the state of Virginia, now a Democratic state, which is really interesting because it wasn't just a couple of elections ago. Looking at Colorado, another state that you could characterize as likely. Again, it could narrow down to lean, but it's still not one of the true toss-up areas of the country. It's not going to be where most of the money is being spent on. We'll get to that in just a moment. So Colorado would probably be a likely state in favor of the Democratic Party. So that puts the Democrats at 209 electoral votes. There is another area where the Democratic Party is probably going to excel in. That is in the state of Maine. Maine at large and Maine's 1st District are probably going to go for the Democratic Party. That's the 3 electoral votes, actually, that are not going to be considered really toss-ups, in my opinion, from the state of Maine. They're not going to be safe. Well, Maine's 1st District will be safe, but I don't see this area as being a pure toss-up statewide. Even though it was closer in 2016, I believe it was 3% for Hillary Clinton. Looking at this 2020 field, they definitely are going to do a lot better than Hillary Clinton did in 2016 really depends on the candidate, to be honest, but the leading ones right now, like Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, are definitely going to do better than Hillary Clinton. And that puts the Democrats at 212 electoral votes. Donald Trump still at 125. But Minnesota, I think, is another state that is probably going to go into the likely column for the Democratic Party. That one's probably already in favor of the Democratic Party going into this election. Of course, it can eventually flip if things do change, but as of right now, that is a Democratic state. So, on to the Republican states. Here's a big one, Texas. This one is probably not going to be a toss-up state. It definitely is going to either be lean or likely for the GOP. Unfortunately for the Democratic Party, even if they get someone like Beto O'Rourke here, it's probably not going to go to the Democrats. This is a state that is historically Republican. The base that votes is still Republican, and just because it narrowed in a midterm election season and a Democratic wave year does not exactly correlate to it being a Democratic win in the presidential election. If you look at 2010, huge wave year for the GOP, picking up 63 states in the House of Representatives. 2012 rolls around, the Democratic Party wins with 332 electoral votes to 206. So again, not always 100% showing or an indication of what's going to show in the next presidential election. So Donald Trump spikes up to 163. Another state I would actually consider the state of Georgia as a likely state. Could narrow down into the lean column. I definitely see that argument, but as of right now, I would say that this state goes into the likely column for Donald Trump. Again, things can change. Georgia could be focused on a little bit more, especially by someone like Joe Biden, but as of right now, I would say this one's a pretty solid 5% in favor of the GOP. And keep in mind, a lot of these Georgian voters did not vote for Donald Trump just because they didn't like Donald Trump. It seems actually that his approval rating is doing pretty well in that state, which is really interesting to me, considering how many people really did not like him in 2016. If we look around, there are other states that are going to be now considered lean, and we're going to go into that now. So the first, I'll start with the Democratic states, actually. The first Democratic state that I'd actually consider lean would be the state of New Hampshire. There are a number of things that I do think are going to come back to haunt Donald Trump here. The Democratic Party is amazing at bringing up, things in the past. So is the Republican Party, but I guess both parties execute it amazingly because it definitely dings down a number of candidates and their numbers. But if we're looking at the state of New Hampshire, I think that one's going to be a lean Democratic state, not so much a toss-up. But again, when you're a lean state, you can become a toss-up. But as of right now, this is the way that it's directing. When I'm talking about a toss-up state, that means it really could go either way. But this one is probably, at least most of the time, in favor of the Democratic Party. If we look over the state of Nevada as well, historically a Democratic state, we can expect that one to go as well for the Democratic Party. But again, things can change. Typically, Democrats are underestimated in the state of Nevada, which is why I do think that the state of Nevada is actually going to go for the Democratic Party. They also have another state in their column, the state of Michigan, I think could narrowly be leaning in favor of the Democratic Party at this point. If you look at Donald Trump's approval rating, in fact, all three of these states he's underwater, but Michigan was the narrowest of all the elections there. And if you look, a lot of these candidates are doing very well in the state of Michigan. If you look at polling data, Biden plus 12, Sanders plus 12. Not so much in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. It's narrower, still a lead for the Democratic Party, but again, it's still narrower, and things definitely do change. A 12-point lead does not equivocate to a 12-point margin on my map. Here, it's a lean margin, even though people like Biden and Sanders are leading by double digits. So again, it's not always the same as what you might see in the polling data, but for the GOP, they do have some lean GOP states that I would not consider pure toss-ups. That is the state. The first state would be the state of North Carolina. I think this one actually could be a lean GOP state. I really don't see this one coming a toss-up for 2020. If we're looking at the numbers here, just historically, again, it's a Republican state. It was very hard for Obama to flip it back in 2008. 14,000 votes flipped the state of North Carolina and then went right back to the GOP in 2012 and 2016. Yes, it could get close, but as of right now, I'm seeing this one as a lean GOP state, along with, actually, if we're looking around, Nebraska's 2nd district would be a lean GOP district. That one could actually go into the likely column, but as of right now, I would see this one as a lean district. Maine's 2nd district still as lean, just based off the margin from 2016. It isn't looking the best for the Democratic Party to rebound by that big of a margin. But again, if you look at the Obama to Trump margin, it was definitely a drastic change, but as of right now, I think Trump's hold on there really depends on the candidate, but as of right now would be slightly in favor of the GOP. So if you look, these are the remaining toss-up states. This is a total of 94 toss-up electoral votes, down from 200 something. Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Iowa, Florida, and Arizona. Though it may look a little interesting, if you just look at the rest of the states, it definitely does make a lot of sense. Those two Rust Belt states, show the best for for Donald Trump, even though they may not be favorable of him or showing him leading in the polls, they still are doing the best for him there. And if you just take a look at the difference between the margin and the 2016 data, again, you have to factor that in as well. Ohio and Iowa have definitely narrowed down in terms of support for the president, so that one is going, those two states are going to move back into the toss-up column from previously being likely Republican states. Florida, though, showing a lot of tendencies in going in favor of the Republican Party. After further analysis, I've concluded that the state of Florida is going to be a pure toss-up state. Even though it may be tilting in favor of the GOP, as of right now, I'd actually say it's fair game for anyone, along with Arizona. I think this one is the one that is the least expected out of the rest of these 5 other states. But Arizona, I do think, is a pure toss-up at this point in time, even though it used to be a safe GOP state just 2 elections ago. So, thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.